You're watching The Morning Show on CKWS.
"7:21 on this Wednesday morning. Welcome back. Always love to hang out with Dr. Robert Morrison, Queen's professor and also an avid blogger. And we're talking about John Lennon, and we can mention John Lennon in the same sentence as Pierre Trudeau.
Yes, they had a meeting in particular that really many look at as an iconic meeting that had a real impact on this country.
It's an amazing thing. I mean, I'd like to think I know a little bit about Trudeau, and I'd like to think I know a little bit about John Lennon, but I didn't know very much about this meeting. And it's a fascinating moment when one of the most famous rock stars in the world, the most famous rock star in the world.
Pierre Trudeau, you mean?
I mean Pierre Trudeau, and then
and then John Lennon.
and then John Lennon. That's right, and Yoko Ono. And Lennon in 1969 is campaigning for peace. And he could have been doing, nothing at all. And he decided that he was going to have his bed in, and he was going to try to bring the world's attention to nonviolence. And with the Vietnam War raging and the Cold War still going on, this is, in my view, a very admirable thing to do. He tried to get the world to think creatively and in a thoroughgoing way about how to stop violence. And that message is something that Pierre Trudeau, was willing to listen to.
At a time when a lot of world leaders didn't want anything to do with Lennon because they considered him to be a bit of a dangerous person
He was
because
on the
of his
FBI
views.
watch list. Too.
Yeah.
So Harold Wilson's Prime Minister of Britain, he doesn't want to know John Lennon. John Lennon, in November, just before he meets Trudeau, has sent back to the Queen his MBE because of Britain's foreign policy. And Richard Nixon famously loathed John Lennon. And our Prime Minister said, yeah, I'll meet him. And Trudeau's door, in my head, Trudeau's door is open to John Lennon. And that says something, I think, really positive about the way this country has conducted its global affairs for a long time. It's a fantastic image to think of John Lennon and Yoko on Parliament Hill in December 1969.
It was just before Christmas, right?
Just before Christmas, 2 days before Christmas. They're supposed to meet for 15 minutes, and they meet for 50 minutes. And they walk in, and Lennon, by all accounts, is very, very nervous. And Trudeau puts him at his ease by saying, "I've read your book." And the image of Pierre Trudeau sitting reading John Lennon's poetry before the meeting, it tells you a little bit about why Trudeau was such a charismatic figure in our history.
Well, this meeting, this period, is the source of your latest blog.
Yes, thank you.
And why did you want to write about this now? And as any writer, you do research. What did you learn about this particular meeting, or the time even?
What I learned was that John Lennon was trying to create hope. And I think it's very, very easy to be cynical, and I think it's very easy to say, well, Lennon was foolish and Lennon was naive. Yes, it's foolish, yes, it's naive in a sense, but we have to start somewhere. There was a time when saying women should have the vote, you'd be called foolish and naive. And now, of course, everybody thinks women should have the vote. Of course they should. And when popular figures, like, for example, Gord Downie, stands up at that concert and says, "Canada, we need to do better," that's an amazing, compelling moment. And poets and artists and creators drive change. That's one of the reasons, not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons we just have to have them in our culture. We have to have Gord Downie standing up and saying, "Canada, we need to do better." And John Lennon stood up in 1969 and said, there are a lot of people dying every day in Vietnam. We need to think more clearly about how to bring this under control. And that's an admirable thing.
Isn't it amazing that music can do that? And immediately I think of Bob Geldof with Live Aid, which became a template, a blueprint for charity rock concerts globally.
With the Live Aid initiative,
And that's 1985. That's a while ago. Right?
The concert for Bangladesh was before that, but there's a long history of music always coming to the forefront and trying to make a change.
Yeah, and so, Elton John's coming and the city's very excited. I'm very excited about Elton John coming. What Elton John has done for AIDS, for raising awareness about AIDS, to me, that's one of the things that poets and activists and songwriters do. They raise political consciousness. They don't. That's not all they do, and they don't have to do that. But that's one of the things that they can do. And every time I study John Lennon or Pierre Trudeau, I end up going, wow. They, you know, Trudeau could have said, like Richard Nixon or Harold Wilson, I want to meet John Lennon. And the fact that Trudeau is 50 and Lennon is 29, and you know, Yoko is with Lennon pushing all of this change, making people think about it. I think it's really important that people think about it. And Canada, in 1969, Lennon was here 3 times. He came for the Montreal bed-in, and the whole world sat at his bed, and Lennon said, we should be thinking about peace. Look at the images in Vietnam, and then look at what we're saying. And then he came back to Varsity Stadium in 1969 with Eric Clapton and played a rock and roll concert at Varsity Stadium. I didn't know that. He flew in and did that. It's the first time Lennon played without the other 3 Beatles. And you get, really, John Lennon? The first time John Lennon played with the other 3 Beatles, he's here? He's at Varsity Stadium.
I know.
And then he comes back, stays with Ronnie Hawkins, and goes and visits our Prime Minister. I think that's a pretty remarkable thing to have done.
And a little known story, too.
Well, Canada, I think sometimes we can work a little harder at telling our own stories. It's a fantastic thing to think of Trudeau opening that door and saying, yes, come on in. And I think that that's something to be proud of. We've got an awful long way to go, as Gord Downey pointed out, but that's a start.
We thank you so very much. This was fascinating reading. You can read all about more about Robert's blog on his website, Robert J. H. Morrison.
Morrison.com, that's right.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
so much.
Thank you very much.
We're back after this.